And maybe before I go to Barbuda, let me speak about global ports briefly too, because the member for Barbuda spoke about global ports. And what we'll do, Mr. Speaker, is that whenever we have these major projects, we'll make sure that we make the documentation available to the public, and we will also file information in this Honorable House. We want to make sure that we operate the most transparent, the most accountable government that you'll find anywhere in the world. That is our objective. So this is not just about satisfying local standards, but satisfying and exceeding global standards. Mr. Speaker, this agreement was only signed today. Am I correct, member, for yesterday? Okay, it was only signed yesterday. It says 31st. What today is the oh my, I'm losing time. I got it wrong, sir. I thought today was the 31st. Okay, so it was signed yesterday, Mr. Speaker. And let me just share the general areas of this agreement. Mr. Speaker, global ports will invest about 86 million US dollars. Of this 86 million dollars, 21 million dollars would be to repay a bond that we have outstanding. ACB and a consortium of other banks funded this bond about 18 years ago. Unfortunately, by the way, the capital sum was 22 million. Unfortunately, it's only down to about 21.5 million today. So it tells you that we have not been generating sufficient money from the cruise tourism product to service a loan of 22 million US dollars. 18 years later, the capital sum has only been reduced by about $500,000 to $1 million. So just imagine now, Mr. Speaker, in order to do this additional pier and the necessary dredging, to include the capital dredging to accommodate the Oasis class ships, it'll run us $100 million. Now, if we're struggling, Mr. Speaker, to service a loan of 22 million US dollars, what do you think will happen if we had to take on a liability of 100 million US? Now, Mr. Speaker, the deal is that they will pay out that loan for the government. In addition, they will provide 30 million US dollars to complete the financing of the new pier, that is the Oasis class pier. And of that, between 8 and 9 million US dollars will be paid back to National Asset Management Company, NAMCO. This is NAMCO who advanced the initial 9 million US dollars. And they will also spend about 2 million US dollars to refurbish the Heritage Mall properties. And they'll also make a payment of 5 million US, which will be a grant to assist entrepreneurs in the tourism sector so that we can increase the amount of leisure and entertainment facilities, tourism-associated leisure and entertainment facilities for Antiguans and Barbudans to participate in that industry and to increase the tourism spend. Now, Mr. Speaker, if we assume that Global Ports is paying about, let's say, 8%, or 7.5%, 8% on its bond, the interest alone will be at least 6 million US dollars annually. Now, we get about an average 600,000 tourists per year. And they pay, what's that tax, $5 or $4.50? $5.75? Okay, so let's say $6, Mr. Speaker. So that's 3.6 million US dollars that we would have earned. And I'm not referring to the solid waste tax. No. Net of that? Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Speaker, if we round it off at $6, that's $3.6 million. So I want the nation to understand what we're doing here. So with that level of arrival, earning $3.6 million, Mr. Speaker, clearly would not be able to pay a loan of $80 million, $85 million. We'll have a problem. So Global Port has undertaken. Okay, what's the net amount, net of the environmental tax? 450? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We give $6. I'm told that the figure is inflated, but it's fine. It reinforces the point, Mr. Speaker, that even at $6, we'd have gotten $3.6 million. What I'm saying here, Mr. Speaker, if we had to borrow the funds, the $80 million, $85 million, $86 million, we'd have had to pay $6 million in interest. So right there and then, we'd have had a deficit of $2.4 million.
What would it cost to run?
Well, we haven't touched costs to operate the place yet. I'm just explaining to the public that it would have been a problem servicing the loan. But even before we'd have gotten to that stage, raising the funds itself would have been a bigger problem. At one point, we tried to get a capex from the Cruise Association, and they refused. Now, if we could have gotten that capex, Mr. Speaker, we probably could have taken our time and maybe do it in stages. Now, we have a product that is literally at the bottom of the table. Our cruise tourism product, Mr. Speaker, is right at the bottom of the table. It needs urgent investment. Heritage Key needs sprucing up. We need to also increase the amount of shops. In fact, part of this agreement is that they will provide $25 million to build a new commercial center. So new commercial properties will be built. And the deal is, the land, most of the land there, that is the government of Antigua and Barbuda owns the land. So we'll be providing the land at a peppercorn rate, with the understanding that at the end of the term, 30 years, the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda will become the owner of the property. Mr. Speaker, the agreement is for 30 years. After 30 years, we're in a position to go to tender. They have the right to bid. That is what is enshrined in this agreement. And clearly, if after 30 years and we're getting the best deal from them, we have the option of giving them another 10 if we wish. But this is not a situation in which we are compelled to renew the contract after 30 years. So the ultimate term is over a 30-year period. But this is not an automatic option of 10. The other thing that Minister Yearwood skillfully did, Mr. Speaker, is that I think after 20 years, we will see an increase in the revenue by 17%. And by the way, the revenue yield will be $1 per head. Am I right, Mr. Member for St. Phil's North? To start. And then it moves from $1 to $1.50 from 2024. So they reckon that they should be able to get up to at least 1 million tourists per year within the next 2 years. So we expect to collect about $1.5 million in revenue net, which we can help to cover the expenses for the staff at Heritage Key. Now the question is, what are they getting? So Speaker, they're getting the piers. They also will be getting some of the shops at Heritage Key, not all. In fact, there's some that belong to Norman Wexeman and the government of Antigua and Barbuda. Those will be expunged from the agreement. Also, we're taking out the vendors mall because we want to make sure that we protect the small vendors. I mean, they get in the use of the piers. Oh, by the way, nothing here is actually sold to, or will be sold to global ports. They will be leased. And upon the expiration of the lease, they will revert back to the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda. So downtown development is not included either. Those are some shops there that are owned by, is it the government that owns those or a private entity? A government and a private entity that owns those stores. Heritage Hotel is also expunged from the deal. The remaining shops, those will go to Global Ports, and Global will operate those and help to supplement whatever income they get from the head tax. Also, the $1.50 US that goes to solid waste, that will continue to go to solid waste. And all the port fees as well are also excluded from the agreement. So the port fees were protected as well. Mr. Speaker, we believe that in the circumstances that we have gotten a reasonable deal with Global Ports. As you may know, Global Ports is the largest private cruise operator in the world, and they are trying to expand into the Caribbean. They already have Cuba. I understand they're about to sign a deal with the Bahamas, and we know too that they're negotiating actively with other Caribbean countries, and including Puerto Rico. I'm of the view, Mr. Speaker, that we may end up getting the best deal, and that is because we are an early mover. And we believe that they'll be able to do a better job. First of all, they're bringing investment capital, much needed capital to improve the product. One of the things that we have undertaken to do, Mr. Speaker, is to invest in the development of Fort James into an entertainment and leisure facility. And we'll be providing opportunities for Antiguans and Barbudans to invest there as well, jointly with NAMCO. So we want to have a major water park facility there, one of the finest that you will find anywhere in the Caribbean. And that is to complement the cruise tourism products so that we can increase the spend. Because one of the problems we have, Mr. Speaker, is that we have one of the lowest tourism spends in the Caribbean. And I want to make the point here too, that the tourism, entertainment and leisure facility at Fort James will be for locals alike. So it will help to improve the living standards of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Mr. Speaker, we will make this facility also available to the Parliament. I have a copy here. And we will also publish the agreement online so that every single Antiguan and Barbudan can peruse it. And let me make the point here too that we had a team comprising a subcommittee of the cabinet. We also had a number of public officials in finance, in the Ministry of Tourism, and legal affairs, who actually sat down and negotiated this particular facility. And I'm pretty confident that the negotiations were in good faith. They tried to get as much as possible. Now, in these things, you don't normally, people second guess us and say we should have gotten this and we should have gotten that. But we are satisfied that in the circumstances, that it is a win-win situation. Because clearly, if we had gone with a proposal that was not satisfactory to Global, then and it would make it inviable, then clearly they'll walk away. I mean, we have to take into consideration that the debt alone, the interest alone that they have to pay on their debt is in excess of $6 million. And I've made a point here too that we are only collecting $3.6 million US so far in total income from the head tax. I spoke about the $5 million US. Thank you very much for reminding me I did. I spoke about it. So now I want to make the point that when Harry Lovell and others in the UPP seek to be critical of this global port project, first of all, I want to make the point here that we made sure that we got public officials involved, some of our brightest minds within the public sector. We did not do any clandestine negotiations. In fact, even though Minister Michael, the member for St. Peter, is not a member of the cabinet, he had some concerns, and we invited him at a meeting with Global Ports at Blue Waters. He had the opportunity to voice his concerns, and they were addressed. So we have been totally transparent about this. Compared to when the former administration signed an agreement with Mr. Darrow, Mr. Darrow was given a memorandum in which he would have taken over not only the cruise port, but Heritage Quay and all of the shops. And I don't remember the term. Minister Michael, member St. Peter, says that, former Minister Michael, says that would have been for 50 years. I'm not sure. But what I do know is that they did sign over clandestinely, or let us sign over, they signed an agreement with Mr. Darrow to give him the operation of the port. And I think they were also looking at the cargo port at the time too. Cargo, cruise, as well as the operation of Heritage Quay, St. John's Development Corporation. Now, Mr. Speaker, certain things were said to myself and Minister Michael. I wouldn't want to repeat it here, but I can tell you that it was a corrupt deal. Well, I'm not going to get into the deal because it's his word, and we don't have the evidence. But he assured us that the information that he gave us was correct. And based on those information, Mr. Speaker, the former administration had agreed corruptly and clandestinely to privatize the cargo port, the cruise port, as well as St. John's Development Corporation and all of the stores. We are not operating like that. And I'm pretty sure that in the circumstances, we have gotten a good deal, one in which we should see an increase in the amount of tourists coming to the island. It means that the vendors will do better, the tourism, those who operate the stores will do better, the taxi men, taxi women, they'll do better. It will be egalitarian, it will lift all boats, And we're pretty sure, too, that even the government's earnings would increase, Mr. Speaker. And again, we are available to answer any other issue, any other concerns that members of the public may have.